Welcome back, everyone. We are excited today to talk about brilliant but practical, accessible things that you can do as you're healing from trauma and trying to help your nervous system be more regulated. We all want more regulated nervous systems, right?
For sure.
It's such a need, affects everything.
Absolutely does. Excited to have this conversation and just share some resources that we have that we found to be really helpful and supportive.
Right, that most anyone
Good.
can use. So we put together a list of like 11, maybe 12 things because we might think of one in the process. So I'm leaving room for that 12th just in case something pops up. And we're just gonna throw them out there and talk about them. So this episode should be casual and easy and fun and maybe give you some ideas of things that aren't part of your lifestyle or your rhythms, your routines, and that you could try to help bring more regulation and support to your nervous system.
Yeah.
So why don't you start with the first one, babe?
Okay. So the first one we have is movement or moving. Um,
Yes.
and I find this one to be really helpful. I think growing up, it was more naturally built into my lifestyle, but adulting is hard and doesn't leave a whole lot of time for movement without intentionality.
That's so true. Yeah, as kids, we're so naturally just little movers and shakers.
Yeah. Yeah. We try to take a walk every night, or most nights
Mhm.
at least. On the weekends, we might get a walk in the morning and at night,
That's
depending on
amazing. Yeah,
how busy our weekends are and the weather.
right.
Um,
And we're super privileged because we're in a tropical country, so we can literally do that any day of the year. And we recognize a lot of our listeners, it's not easy
yeah,
to get out there when it's
yeah,
cold.
yep. I have that conversation a lot with people about
Yeah,
movement in nature, and they're like, and it's if they're
it's
in the north, it's like freezing and snowy, and it's like I don't want to go outside. So
Mhm.
yeah, there is challenges, and we can even talk about a little bit in those situations, some other things that we can do.
Mhm. Yeah. And I mean, part of it could be that movement isn't just like exercise. Like our walks are a huge part of keeping good nervous system regulation maintenance. But
Yeah,
then also, in the midst of feeling dysregulated, movement, like little bursts of movement. So we call these nervous system support practices. And we offer several different ones in our signature program to just help equip people to know how to move in ways
yeah,
that feel good. But I just find myself regularly listening to my body when it says like move. And I don't
mm,
even know what it wants. I just know it needs to move. So I'll get up from my desk or the couch or, after I'm driving around a lot, maybe when I come inside, I'll just take those times to move. A lot of times I like to sway. For some reason, swaying is really soothing to my nervous system. Shaking, like shaking the excess water off your hands or letting your whole body shake actually.
yeah,
Rocking, we have a
yeah.
swing outside that is now in a really good position.
Mm, I like that
Lou
swing.
loves that. I do too, actually. I didn't know that. I think it's the proprioceptive system that really likes
Yeah, I
the
think so.
swinging. But wow, that feels so
Yeah.
good. That just really slow, gentle swinging.
And our swing is not like a normal swing, it's like a basket swing
Hmm.
thing. So it's really
Yeah.
big that you can sit in it. And so it's,
Yeah, with pillows.
yeah, and because sometimes swinging too much is overstimulating for me, but that gentle swinging is good.
Yep.
I
Yep.
do a lot of, like you said, the hand flicking, shaking. Um,
Flicking
but we've,
people off.
no, not, not that one.
That's not one of your
Um,
nervous system support practices.
I mean, once in a while I get like
Yeah.
this urge, but I try to
Yeah,
resist
juice
that
that anger
one.
out.
Yeah. Um, I found yoga to be really good. Um, there's some yoga
Mm,
nidra that we've tried with some videos on YouTube that are like, I remember the first time I tried it, was like, what's this gonna do? And for some like every time after I do it, I'm like, I feel
yeah.
better. Just grounding. So those are a bunch of different options, and the goal here is get in your body and notice how your body's asking you to move. And so
Right.
there's gonna be infinite amount of other ideas of what's going to work for
Mhm.
different people, but this is kind of just a suggestion to get your mind moving, no pun
Yep.
intended, in the direction
Yes.
of moving.
And those freeze, specifically freeze and shut down states often keep you from moving. And
Yeah,
so to bring in some mobilizing energy you might feel a lot of resistance to it first, but it might be exactly what you need to help support you in those hard
yep,
survival states.
absolutely.
So moving huge in little ways and just having some movement practices in your life, like walking, swimming, dancing, yoga.
When I go to the
Well,
gym, I do feel a shift. It's hard to get in
absolutely.
there, but when afterwards, I feel much different. And it's interesting as I've gotten older how I've had to adapt to my body. Or I used to play a lot of sports, and I haven't been able to play as many sports, whether it's time or just getting injured. But so I've had to adjust, and that's um, it's really important to find ways that just because you can't do what you used to be able to do, to find ways that work for you. Um,
That's great.
and we have a son that's working out heavy, and he's like, "Come on, Dad, you can lift more." I'm like, and I'm just trying to, and I have to remind myself that I have to work out at my pace and at what's comfortable for me. I'm not trying to kill myself like I used to. I'm just trying to get movement.
Yeah, he's cute. He's super inspiring to us because he
He is.
loves the gym.
He's
This
got me back
kid.
into it.
Yep. It's amazing. Okay, so the second thing on our list is animals and leveraging the co-regulation support from animals, particularly mammals, although I've heard
Mhm.
like birds and other non-mammals can also have that co-regulation. So that's amazing. And whatever you like, seek it out. If you can't own a pet, go be around animals. But if you can possibly find a way to own one, this is just a really great way to have a source of really simple, easy love,
Yeah,
non-complicated. Human love and connection can be really complicated. We all know that if we're recovering from trauma. But animals, while they can be a pain in the butt because they're dependent on you and they make messes and they need to be potty trained, all that, they also have such a pure love. And we've just found we used to hate animals, which makes perfect sense because we were totally stuck in survival states and had no space for it. But now it's like animals just give us those little mini morsel doses of love, adoration, delight, and co-regulation throughout the day. And it's huge. Highly recommend.
I do too. And Lauren, she says we hated them. It was really, I hated them.
Yeah, I wasn't interested, but yeah, I
You
guess
weren't
you hated
interested.
it.
I didn't see any use for them. But as I've done more healing, like I have really enjoyed having pets. They've been very co-regulating, brought happiness. And like you said, just that uncomplicated love. They, as long as you pet them, they're gonna come back. And so, yeah, that one's been a huge one for our family. A
Yeah.
very unexpected one for me.
Hmm. Always those unexpected surprises in our healing are
Yep.
really special.
Yeah. Um, and the next one is another big one for me, nature and beauty. I've
Hmm.
always been attracted to nature. I've always liked hiking, being outside, being in nature. But as again, I've been doing more of my work, it's not just being outside, but it's like noticing what is outside. Like in the past, if I was like in a forest, I could really admire the beauty there. But now, even on our walks, we help each other notice flowers, clouds, the moon, birds, all kinds of different things. And that was again a huge shift in me when I noticed my nervous system starting to heal more. It was your nervous system was healing. It was kind of co-regulating mine. It was like you were noticing a lot of beauty. And all of a sudden I just
Mm.
found myself, rather than walking and looking at the ground, I was like, oh, that's a pretty flower. Oh, let's stop and look at this flower. Hey, I'm like, oh, like this wasn't me. And I was just your your work that you were doing really rubbed off on me. And that is just a huge one now. Just as I ride my bike home after a long day, I try to look at the sky and just take a deep breath and bring it in and notice what's around me. Um, it's been a really huge resource for me.
Yeah. Yep. We always thought you had to be like super like outdoorsy camping people to enjoy beauty, but no, you do
Nope.
not have to. And you can just get yourself a beautiful plant and put it in your
Yep.
house on your desk and give it little bits of water every day and talk to it, and you'll be like enjoying that beauty so much. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
in Thailand. Or, like you said, in the middle of the forest or camping or something big. Nature's literally all around us.
And you have a great point of just even plants inside. That's been a
Yeah.
huge, again, just I've noticed like we have plants all around it, and being able to sit here and I have a plant right next to me and it's nice and green and doing great. And it's so peaceful to look at. And then when you see things growing, it's just really nice dopamine rush.
Okay, so for the next one on our list, number 4 is sexual pleasure. And this can be open to interpretation and whatever you aligns with your values. But it's obvious in the research that orgasming and sensual embodiment is beneficial for the body and for the mind and produces positive neurotransmitters. So this
Yep.
is a great way to include something that is actually easy to neglect in the
Yeah.
craziness of life and in survival states, but growing in your expressiveness of your sexual health can be a really powerful way to support your nervous system. And it definitely deserves to be included.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, like you said, lots of research that shows the benefits, but also depending on um, like if you're growing up in a highly rigid religious environment, working towards that can also bring a lot of healing. Um,
Mm,
Exploring your healthy sexuality, healthy sexual pleasure, and knowing your body.
yeah,
That's another important way to not. It's just not just beneficial, but depending on your story, it can also be very healing.
right. That's amazing. And just like this one, I would say probably all of these have been studied. And it's kind of
Mm.
funny that they'll put thousands of dollars of research money into studying like the benefits of bird song, for instance. They've literally studied that. What happens in your body when you hear birds singing? Like this is basically if we just go back to more a traditional way of being human before all the modernization, um, the things that are parts of humanity and have been for years, probably, little side secret, are regulating to your nervous system. So
Right.
just like that, healthy sex and pleasure is intended for humans and has always been a part of the fabric of humanity. Just like everything else, we've not always used that in a good way that was enriching
Yeah.
to us or to others. We heal, we get to reclaim all of these areas for us, for our fullness of life and for our thriving. So Woohoo!
Yeah, and as you were just talking, there's a caveat of the
Mhm.
importance of the sexual pleasure is not just one person's sexual pleasure, but the pleasure of both both people that's within a partnership.
It's, yeah, if it's partnered sex, mutual pleasure is the ideal. And um, that's actually part of what makes sex beneficial is the co-regulation and the
But
loving
mutual
someone else, not
satisfaction,
just, yeah, not just caring about yourself.
right?
That's important.
It is.
Okay.
And
Um,
so next one is creativity. And this one is it's also very open-ended because we can be creative in many different ways. Being creative is hard to access when we're in sympathetic or shut down. And so it can be really beneficial to regulate you. It can also be an anchor and safety. As I've been working through things, I've noticed that creativity has been a place where it's been opened up to me, where I've learned how um, I'm not creative in a lot of the natural senses or artistic, but I do have some creativity and I enjoy engaging in that. And it's a way of regulating, of um, decompressing. It can be really beneficial experientially for me, but also there's so many different ways of being creative, whether it's creative movement or dancing or singing, writing, journaling, storytelling, creative story work, um, painting, drawing. Um, yeah, we have
Crocheting.
crocheting, um, all kinds of just different ways of creating something and being creative in how you're doing that.
Yeah. And if you're feeling really uninspired, because again, these survival states keep us out of creative modes,
Yep.
even apps like drawing apps where you can just fill in like color or do puzzles on an app. Like there are ways to see beauty that you have been behind the creation of, which is can be
Mhm.
satisfying and might even open you up to old hobbies that you used to like that life has gotten you away from. So
Yeah.
creativity is a great one. Another one is rest and slowing down. Rest can be complicated when you're stuck in shutdown. So we want to just acknowledge that. And we talk about the states, the nervous system states in 2 other episodes. So go ahead and check those out if you're curious. But rest can be, you can create a new relationship with rest, whether or not you've rested a ton or not at all. It's likely if you're in nervous system dysregulation, you need a new relationship with rest. And
Yeah.
so what that looks like for someone who overdoes it all the time is taking those small pauses throughout the day, checking in with their body, doing a little bit of breathing and a little bit of grounding, maybe taking a break and not doing anything productive and just closing your eyes and taking a nap or laying in a swing or a hammock. For the folks who have had to rest so much because of chronic illness or shutdown, depression, burnout, um, having a new orientation to rest will be really powerful for you, and using rest in a way that you don't feel shamed or criticized or worthless about, like allowing yourself to be treated by a nap and getting
Yeah.
your sheet nice and cold with the fan and putting on some favorite music, really making rest not so much a this is just survival, I'm going to die if I don't do this, that posture, not trying to lean out of that place into a more, I'm going to treat myself and luxuriate in the rest that is here.
Yeah.
And just that posture alone can really help the shame and all of the secondary stuff that's connected to rest when you have a lot of shutdown or chronic illness.
Mm.
It can help to shift that. And you may even find you will need less rest, which is
Right.
could be beneficial. But slowing
Absolutely.
down is for all of us, whether it's slowing down physically or just maybe you don't do a lot physically, but mentally you have a very critical inner critic and you have a lot of thoughts in your mind constantly pounding you and giving you urgency and stress. Slowing those down might be what you're invited to.
Yep. And I find because my mind does tend to race, something that helps me is just notice, like focusing on my breathing during that time. Um, or like feeling if it's at nighttime, I'm like feeling my bed, the covers, trying to that slowing down and being embodied can
Mhm.
help really shift your
Racing
mind.
mind. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah, what you were saying, it's sometimes it's a hard relationship with rest or slowing down. And so learning how to embrace it, what when it's needed, and um, make the most of it, like you were
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Some another one we put down is music and singing. Um, I'm not a singer, so but music, I do enjoy listening to music, what all kinds of different types of music. Sometimes like rap or R&B, and sometimes it's like instrumental as I'm maybe working and I just want to hear some of that music, and maybe there's birds in the background singing. Um, so there's um, and with singing, even that's also they've studied that and shown how that activates the vagus nerve as you're singing, and those vibrations can activate your vagus nerve and bring regulation as well.
Yeah,
Um,
even humming does that,
mhm.
uh, if you're not a singer, and even gargling does that if you're not a hummer. There's so many
Yeah,
ways to activate the vagus from inside.
yeah,
Um, yeah, we actually just used music just now to reset because we were
mm,
trying to talk through something, Luke and I, and when you work together, work and home sometimes blurs. And so we were trying to talk through kind of a misunderstanding we had last night. And we both were just feeling kind of shut down, would you say,
yeah,
state
yeah,
wise?
yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
So it's like, how do we help shift ourselves, support ourselves? Shifting isn't the goal, but supporting
Right.
yourself and brings a shift. So that we can, have a productive rest of our day.
Yeah,
And we just put on some music and just did some slow dancing together in our office.
it was very
And
nice.
it just was a few
Yeah,
minutes, a moment of reconnecting to ourselves, and each other. And
yep,
it helped, it really
it
helped
did.
shift.
There was resistance for me, as that shutdown was there, but it was your invitation was
Mhm.
received, and it was it definitely shifted for me.
Yeah. Yeah, music is so, so, so powerful. Make as many playlists as you want. A playlist when I feel sad, a playlist when I feel shut down, a playlist when I need to feel hope, a playlist when I have a lot of energy and I want to get it out. Like, so yeah, music is an incredible, incredible free tool, and we encourage you to find use of it, wherever you can. So the eighth is laughing, lightness, and fun. Kind of just put those all together. Fun is really hard to access, just like a lot of these when you're in survival states, but
Yeah,
bringing in some lightness and laughter and enjoyment, playfulness, into your day, even in little ways. We encourage most of these to be started in little ways, just small amounts of them to create more tolerance in your system. But yeah, we have been using lightness and fun more and
yeah,
really enjoy that, connecting to that side of us.
yeah, and it's contagious. Laughing, but also fun. We see that in our kids a lot. They're maybe a little more tense, and if we lighten up the mood, they follow that lead really quickly.
That's so true. Yeah,
Um, and
powerful stuff.
yeah, and our house is becoming a lot more light, fun, with more laughter, as it takes intentionality, but also just regulation. And the
Right.
more we have that, the more we are able to offer that and experience that.
Hmm. Yeah.
So the next one that we want to offer is other people's stories, whether that's a movie, a book, a show, just listening and reading and watching other people's stories that can inspire you, that can encourage you, that can normalize your experience, that can bring hope. And some of them also bring laughter, fun, and lightness. And so that's another way of maybe like in the winter where you maybe can't, there's not much movement or there's not much sunlight and it's more gray. Like that might be a place where uh, you can focus on is other stories where you can get that feedback and that encouragement of other people overcoming or healing, growing,
Mhm.
connecting.
And you may need to, if you're like me, I watch and listen to a lot of really heavy stuff, and I have to be super intentional to vary
That's
that
true.
with like with light, hopeful, inspiring things. And it takes work because my nervous system prefers the heavier stuff. But I think a balance is really, really good. And
Yeah.
uh, I've just been amazed how much, like you said, Luke, relating to other people's stories and being understood, being like better understanding your own, that is an unbelievable gift of reading and watching movies
Mhm.
and shows. Like to be able to better understand your story helps you integrate your story and conceptualize and reduces shame. I mean, there's so many things you could say about story and the power that it
Yeah.
has in culture.
Yep.
So obviously we want to choose wisely because some stories are really devastating and
Yeah.
in a redemptive way, not like, oh, the victim gets the healing and the abuser and perpetrator gets justice. Not that doesn't happen in a lot of stories. So
Right.
we want to choose wisely which stories we take part in.
Yep.
Number 10 is visualizations, and visualizations. When Luke was talking earlier about how I was seeing a lot of beauty and kind of it was rubbing off on him. Visualizations is where I began my brain retraining journey with DNRS, and visualizations were new to me. I had never done anything like it, and they just became a way for me to see beauty in my visualizations in these unreal places first. Some of them were real places I would visualize, but then it brought it into real life for me. And it helped me access beauty and goodness in the here and now that I didn't have a lot of access to, honestly. So it's,
Yep.
again, a tool. It's not necessary, but it can be incredibly powerful when you can't really see good around you, when you
Mhm.
can't really feel it, when you can't,
Hard to
when
access
you're,
it.
yeah, your own circumstances just make it really inaccessible. Using visualizations is an amazing way. So that that is something we encourage people to do in our signature program. And yeah, it's amazing what the brain can do through
Yeah.
essentially its imagination, which kids again do all the time. But in adulthood, we don't use our imagination anymore. So
We have to learn how
visualizations,
to do that again.
yeah, we can learn how to do it. Um, okay, and then our last one.
Just real quick before we go on, like sort reminder that visualizations can be something like not real. It could be something that you experienced in the past or something you want to experience in the future. So all those different ways can be ways of visualizing, of reliving a good, something really good, or something that you hope to do, or something that's not even real, but fantasy. And you can
Yeah.
and visualize about that.
Yep, that's a good point. Happy Chill Fun Time is a great podcast that has lots of visualizations of someone else doing it, and you can just kind of
Yeah,
listen along. Or guided imagery. I mean, there's a lot on YouTube you could find, but Happy Chill Fun Time is a really
it's a
good,
good one.
easy read.
And the last one that we have is learning how to grieve. And this one is not maybe creative and pleasure and fun, but this one's really important because our bodies hold that grief, and grief is what keeps us, and a lot of times gets in the way of us accessing regulation. So learning how to grieve, and that could be having emotion, or that could be just accepting the reality of your story, accepting your story and how what you've lost because of your story, um, validating your experience of your story. Um, a lot of times we have a hard time validating our story because there's so many other stories that are worse than ours. And so that's going to stop us from grieving, which is going to stop us from healing, which is going to stop um, us from finding that safe and social state. It's going to keep us on that protective, um, triggered states. And so, and there's so many different ways of grieving. Again, it could be having a good long cry, could be just accepting, it could be writing, it could be creating art, it could be singing, writing songs. And sometimes it's just sharing your story or talking or acknowledging. I like to say it like it's receiving the invitation to grieve. That sometimes we don't have to stay when we grieve. We don't have to stay there for 24 hours a day for 6 months. It's sometimes it's just like, ooh, like I just had this memory, or I'm feeling really sad about this. And it's just acknowledging that and sitting with that and letting that be there. Sometimes that takes 30 minutes and sometimes that takes 30 seconds. It just kind of attuning to your body of where it's at and what it needs in that moment.
Yeah,
Um,
grief is so much more like a process and a
yeah,
lifestyle, really,
yeah,
than
yeah,
even, I think before I knew deep grief, I thought it was like situational, an event, like,
yep,
okay, grieve for a year, or I just didn't
right,
really know how it's as just this new way you enter into um, learning to hold the truth of your story. And
yep,
like you said, all those different invitations to grieve throughout your days will come up completely unexpected a lot of the times.
yep,
And that's when you just respond. And that responding to those and all the
mhm,
different ways you do that um, is grief work. That is it.
right.
Like
That's
there's no
beautiful.
crazy formula.
Right.
There's no it is like attuning to what is alive in you and the recognition of your losses.
Mm.
And it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah,
Um, it's really hard to do and it's really hard on the nervous system, but suppressing it and denying it and living outside of the reality of the grief that's there, I would say is even harder on the nervous
right.
system and will lead to long-term
Hmm.
I don't want to say consequences. That sounds, it will lead
Like
to
a
long-term
punishment,
effects.
but yeah, it's not punishment. It's just it's going to affect you, right?
The reality, right, of it is going to show up for sure. So yeah, grief isn't as fun and cheery as a lot of these, but grief work is an amazing way to bring more long-term regulation to your nervous system and heal you of a lot of trauma.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
an important part. It's not the fun side, but it's a very important part of the
yeah,
journey.
absolutely. So we'll just list them again. Movement, animals, nature and beauty, sexual pleasure, creativity, rest and slowing down, music, singing, laughing, lightness and fun, other people's stories through books and movies, visualizations, and learning how to grieve. Those are our 11 brilliant ways to bring more regulation into your nervous system. And as you can see, these things are not that crazy. They're
Yeah,
just being human and showing up in your full humanity and letting yourself experience your full humanity.
exactly. And we just invite you to pick a few or one and just check it out and see what works for you and how your body
Totally.
responds to it.
Totally. All right. Well, I hope this was helpful to you in some ways, and please share it with someone who may need some easy, accessible ways to support themselves and their nervous system.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time on the Field of Flourish podcast.